What is up, everybody? I'm Robert Wykowski Jr., and due to inclement weather, we were forced to shoot inside today. We were in Moore Hall on the campus of Central Michigan University, as today I'm going to be breaking down the Los Angeles Chargers Detroit Lions Week 2 regular season matchup. And without further ado, let's roll that intro.
Welcome to episode 3 of the Media's Input. I am your host, James A. Paxson. To check out episode 2, where I interviewed Pat Johnston, podcast host of the Left of Lansing podcast and sports reporter over at 790 AM and 100.5 FM, WSGW in Saginaw. Check the YouTube channel, James Paxson. My guest today is the creator of Dragon Den Sports, someone I met through the broadcasting field at Central Michigan University, and complete diehard Lions fan, Mr. Robert Wykowski Jr. How are we doing, my buddy?
I'm doing good. Just with everything going around with all this pandemic and shutdowns and stuff like that, just trying, keep myself busy, living one day at a time.
Is there something you've picked up since the virus started? Started any more hobbies, started doing something different, watching any old sports, I assume?
So I haven't really been watching a whole lot of old sports just because I've been focusing on other hobbies, trying to broaden my skill set a little bit. So I'm doing a lot more videography stuff, messing around with Photoshop. I'm helping my dad actually outside doing some yard work. We've built a couple of garden beds for our backyard, and we're getting new flooring in. So there's a lot of cleaning I have to do around the house. So it's just like little things that I've started to pick up and kind of focus on more than just sports. I kind of stepped away from that for the time being, just to focus on everything else that can help me in the future.
Yeah, this stuff, I'm a little late to it being at my age. I don't really know how to do a lot of this stuff. So luckily I'm back home right now, and Dad always has a project going on right now. So I'm learning a lot as well, that's for sure. What's one thing you've learned how to do since that you didn't before?
So I kind of knew how to do this before, but I've started to pick it up a little bit more because I haven't played in a while. So my mom and I play chess every once in a while when she doesn't work. And I haven't played since I was pretty young. So maybe 10, 11 years old. And I wasn't even good then. Mm-hmm. I just felt like, you know what, I got all this free time now. Let's play some mind games and kind of keep those brainwave activities, still running. So we play that every once in a while when she doesn't have to go to work and stuff.
Is she pretty good?
She's a lot better than I am because, she grew up with her dad playing and she just kept on going with it. And she remembers everything about when she did grow up playing this game. So it's just me trying to catch up to that level right now.
So tell me where you got the idea to create Dragon Den Sports. It's a website, kind of a sports blog. You do everything on the website. You do videos, you do a little podcasting, not much. You write a ton, you interview a bunch of people, and of course in football season, that's when you're big, you're in the zone in football season. Tell me where you got the idea to create Dragon Den Sports.
Right. So I want to say I created it when I was a senior in high school, roughly. Every day in my first and second hour classes, it was an engineering course. I was in that class for 4 years. So honestly, I could be qualified for an engineer, but that's not the point. But every day in that class, I would just sit on ESPN. Now, I love my teacher to death. He has my utmost respect and everything, but I would only sit on ESPN. And then I would do the projects at the last minute. But everybody knew that. So they'd be asking me hey, so what's going on here in the NHL? What's going on here in the MLB? And I would write on note cards before they even got to class what was going on. And I'd set it where they would sit. And everybody loved that. So my buddies got talking and they're like, hey, you do this so regularly. Why don't you make a Twitter or an Instagram or a Facebook and start doing that electronically for everybody else and not just these students in the class? So I sat down and I was like, you know what? That doesn't sound like a bad idea. And I was trying to think of names and stuff to go along with it. And I played soccer my entire life. And the one team that always comes back to me is the Red Dragons. It was a team that my dad coached me on. So, it's got that special place in my heart. And I just kind of pieced a little bit of it together and did Dragon Den Sports. And here we are today, interviewing NFL prospects and just running that course.
How big are you hoping this gets, or what's one big thing that you hope happens in the future?
I'm really trying to hit that 3,000 followers right now. That's like the main goal that I have. I would like this to get pretty big. We do talk to a lot of athletes, whether they be minor league baseball prospects or NFL prospects that are looking to get into the league. So I've had that connection with some of these guys, and they've all said that what I'm doing is awesome. They really love that I'm reaching out to these smaller schools and getting their voices heard rather than focusing on like the Power 5 conferences. I talked to a lot of guys in the MAC and D2 and D3 schools, stuff like that, and a lot of JUCO guys as well. So I think just getting their voices heard is my biggest thing. And I think once I start getting that rolling a little bit more often and people start to realize what I'm trying to do, and it's not just for me, it's for them, I think this could get the ball rolling sooner rather than later.
What's been the biggest moment yet that has happened where it was either an interview or you reached a milestone? But what's been the biggest moment so far where you went, you know what, this is awesome?
Okay, so it was either last winter or the winter before. I went to Tampa Bay. We went to a Tampa Bay Buccaneers game, and there was a guy that I interviewed my freshman year of college. His name was Sergio Bailey. He was a great wide receiver for Eastern Michigan. He's a dire friend of mine. I talk to him literally every day. I just texted him yesterday. And he was playing for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, he wasn't really playing. He was on their roster, but he broke his ankle against the Detroit Lions in the preseason because it was raining and the grass wasn't very good. And he shattered his ankle. So, he was out. But he was still at Raymond James Stadium. So he went down there. I was texting him and stuff like that. And I was like, hey, we don't know each other. We don't know what each other looks like. But I'm going to call you when I'm at this game. I want to see if we can hook up, And I call him, and he's like, hey, where you at? And I'm just like kind of describing my location. And I look down, and I saw him because I've seen what he looks like, from photos and stuff like that. And I was like, hey, dude, look up. And he looks up at me, and he has this huge smile on his face. And we get to talking and stuff. He autographs his on-field pass for me and stuff like that. And we get to just talking. And he leans into me and he's like, hey, dude, I just want to let you know what you're doing is so important. Talking to these smaller school guys and just getting their voices heard. I'm always going to have your back. And if you ever need anything at all, please don't be afraid to reach out. And that stuck with me since this very day. And he owns a business now in San Diego. He's still training to come back into football. He played for the XFL for a little bit for the Seattle Dragons. And then after he was released by them, he went to the Los Angeles Wildcats. So he's still trying to get back into the league. That ankle injury really did affect him because he wasn't able to really showcase his skills in the NFL. But that's a moment for me that's going to stick with me for years and years to come.
What is one conference or one sport or even one division that you think does not get the respect or coverage it deserves?
Oh, the MAC, easily. Yeah, I'm not just saying that because I go to Central Michigan. I just don't think they get enough credit. There's a lot of great schools in the MAC, Buffalo, Central Michigan last year, Western Michigan 2 years prior, Toledo year after year after year. There's so many good schools and teams within the MAC that I feel like don't get enough recognition for what they can accomplish each season.
Who are some of your biggest broadcasting or journalism inspirations?
This is going to sound really weird, but I don't really have any inspirations. I just want to be me. I don't want to look at anybody else. I don't want to model what I do after anybody else. I just want to make my voice, make it what I want it to be. I don't want to follow anybody else.
Do you think guys like us kind of, for lack of a better word, copycat a little bit? That's why you don't want to act like someone else?
Yeah, no, I've gotten that a couple times. You and I, when we try out for auditions to be the play-by-play or color commentary for basketball or for baseball and softball, we always watch clips and listen to audio of other broadcasters. And sometimes we pick up some of those little things that we hear or see them do. And for me, I just don't want to be like that. I want to create my own voice. I want to create my own style. Sure, I'll listen to a couple broadcasts here and there, but I won't let that affect how I go about calling a game or, in this instance, writing a story for these athletes.
Has there been someone who's helped you the most in your career, kind of like a role model or someone who's given you the best advice possible?
I would say, okay, so I had a journalism professor at Central, Kathy Backus. She's somebody that kind of started this whole Dragon Den Sports blog. She got me into interviewing all of these athletes and stuff like that. And I would say that she's the one that really opened this door for me. She's there every day. Every time I see her in the halls, she's asking me how this is going. And I just think that's what really hit hard for me, just having that support on campus and having her just kind of tell me every time I see her, how's this going? I love what you're doing. When she sees my content, she likes and shares all my content. So it's just great to see that recognition from a professor at Central.
Overall, what do you think is the most important thing you've learned while interviewing?
Always stay with it. There's a lot of guys that when you reach out to them and they're not going to respond, or they'll tell you, hey, reach out to my agent. I've had a couple guys like that. And I've called their agents and it didn't really work out all that well. But, I just stay with it. I find those other guys that are willing to do an interview because they don't get looked at enough. They don't get invited to the combine. They only have a pro day. So I always pursue guys more than once because I want to try to get that story. I know I'm going to get shut down sometimes, but I don't let that stop me.
So I've already said you're a really big Lions fan, but more than just a fan, you cover the team very well on the website and you do your videos. I saw them last fall. I very much liked it. I thought it was cool that you would do some of them outside. Frankly, I think one of the best ones you did was at the football field. What was the idea to do them in different areas instead of just having like one, I'm filming this in my room every single time? What was the idea to like travel destinations per se?
So the big thing that I really wanted to do was shoot the home videos in Detroit. That way I was like, when I was tailgating, I could shoot the videos then. And that way it gave it a cool little scenery that, I actually do go to a lot of these games. I am at every game. But it didn't really work out that way. There was too much noise from traffic and stuff like that. And I just wasn't really confident with how it sounded when I was in Detroit. So instead, I, just shot all the videos in Mount Pleasant in like 3 or 4 days prior to the game. And I think it worked out pretty good. We traveled to a whole bunch of locations depending on the weather. And I think that really gave it that beautiful little scenery touch, I should say, because I don't know, I thought it was visually appealing. People like seeing the fall colors or the snow on the ground or stuff like that.
What's your number one tailgate food? If you're tailgating, what's the number one food?
Oh, okay. So it's got to be, so my parents make these, I can't think of the name right now, but it's like little lamb, like sausage links. I can't think of the name for some weird reason. But no, it's so good. You make it in a wrap with like onions and peppers and like a sour cream cucumber sauce. So good.
So overall, Lions have a big year this upcoming year because I guess, everyone's job is on the line, especially when you go 3-12-1 and 6-10, and there was high expectations at the beginning. So how do you think the Patricia Quinn era will end? Do you think one of them will stay longer than one? Do you think they'll find success next year? Or do you think it's all just going to implode next year and they're both gone?
Okay, so what I think is truly going to happen, I've looked at the Lions schedule numerous times. I've kind of looked at it based on what the teams did last year, how they improved or declined in the offseason. And I do strongly believe, as much as I know you're not going to like this answer, I think the Lions could go 8-8 this year, just based on looking at their roster and looking at the talent that they brought in and the talent that their opposing teams brought in and some of the key players that those teams have lost. And with that being said, I do think Bob Quinn may be there for a little bit longer than Matt Patricia. I mean, going 8-8 doesn't always secure you a playoff spot, especially in the NFC, when now you got Tom Brady and just Carolina's got a whole new quarterback in Teddy Bridgewater. So, I mean, they could improve as well. They got Robbie Anderson at wide receiver. So that offense just excelled a little bit more. Tampa Bay, like I just said, they improved a lot. So there's a lot of NFC teams that really improved and stepped up from a year ago. So going 8-8 for the Lions might not secure a playoff spot, but it's going to be a big, major improvement from a season ago. So with that, Matt Patricia might be good for an extra year, but I don't want to say that because I don't think that's going to be the case. I do think he's going to be gone even if the Lions do go 8-8, but I do see Bob Quinn staying a little bit longer just based on his offseason moves this year.
Do you think this past draft was his best draft so far?
Oh, easily. So I shouldn't say easily because the first 4 rounds I was very impressed with, getting 2 guards, getting that defensive end, and getting a corner, all major needs for the Lions. But then drafting a wide receiver that's had problems catching the ball, drafting another running back that honestly we didn't need after we drafted Swift. But I will say that compared to recent years, this was honestly the best draft on paper because it filled so many holes and so many needs that the Lions didn't really address in free agency. So I would say this was his best draft by far. But there was a couple questionable picks, but I can live with that.
Overall, are you going to go with Swift or Carry-On if both are healthy? Week 1, who's your starting running back?
Oh, you're going to put me on the spot like that. It depends. Because Kerryon Johnson, we've seen him healthy for half the season. He's missed, I think, 18-ish games, if I remember correctly. And we really haven't seen DeAndre Swift in action yet in the Honolulu Blue and Silver. So, in the preseason, when we see him start rolling, my answer might be a little bit different. So, right now I'm going to stay with Kerryon Johnson just because we've seen him play for the Lions a little bit. We know what he can do. DeAndre Swift, after the preseason, might be a whole different story. We might see a lot better results from him. So, for right now, I'm going to say Kerryon Johnson.
Going into next season, biggest weakness the team has right now, whether it's pass rush or anything on the offense or staying healthy or anything upper management, whatever you think is the one biggest thing that is their biggest weakness going into next season.
So it's going to be defensive line for sure. I know they addressed some of the position in the draft, but they still don't – after they lost Damon Snacks Harrison, they really didn't fill that role with a lot of experience. Mike Daniels is still a target that they can get after. Last year when he was healthy, he recorded an 86 overall grade for one of the games that he did play in. And, that's a pretty good grade right there by Pro Football Focus. So if he could get back to that caliber of play, I think no doubt in my mind that the Lions should target him because he's still unsigned and he can still be a key piece to this defensive line with the experience that he has with Green Bay in the one season with the Lions. But defensive line is still their biggest weakness, arguably.
All right, so moving on from the Lions, I think we had 3 very exciting quarterbacks get drafted in this past draft. You had Burrow, you had Tua, you had Herbert. Burrow goes to Cincinnati, kind of a hometown thing, which is awesome, but he was clearly the best college football player last year, without a doubt. Tua gets injured. We don't exactly know what's going to happen. He ends up going to Miami. There's some upside to Miami because, I like Brian Flores. So I'll say there is some upside because I think he's a good coach, and you can't really do any worse than last year, per se. And then Herbert goes to the Chargers. Whether it's going to be Tyrod Taylor or Justin Herbert, who knows? But who will have the best career out of the 3? Who's in the best situation out of the 3? And who do you think will underachieve the most out of Burrow, Tua, and Herbert?
So are we talking just based on this coming season, their rookie year, or careers in general?
Whole career.
Okay, so who benefits the most or who's in the right system?
Yes.
I would say probably Joe Burrow just based on the talent that he's got with Joe Mixon. AJ Green, as of right now, we don't know if he's going to be traded or what's going to happen in the future. Tyler Boyd, they have all that talent surrounding him already. They just have to fix that offensive line. And I think he's in good shape to have a long-lasting, successful career with Cincinnati. What was the last one that you mentioned?
Who do you think will underachieve out of the 3?
Who do you think will underachieve? So, that one's kind of tough just because of the injury that Tua had, with that hip. That's a nasty injury. He was a mobile quarterback in Alabama. He only had 560 rushing yards, I believe, in his career at Alabama, roughly speaking. So we know that he's able to run the ball. He's able to have that quick feet. But with that hip injury, a lot of that could change. We don't really know how efficient or whatever you want to say that with his mobility is going to be like. So for now, I would say Tua just based on his mobility concerns. I do think he's a great quarterback. He's got a lot of accuracy. He's got a lot of upside to him, as you had mentioned. But with that mobility, I could see that being a concern for Miami's offense. but I guess we'll see what happens. And I think the same goes for Justin Herbert. I really don't know which quarterback's going to be the most successful out of the three. But I do think that Joe Burrows is in the right system. He's got the right pieces surrounding him to actually really find success early on in his career. Justin Herbert, same thing. You know, I think Tyrod Taylor's going to be the starter year one. I think Justin Herbert can learn a lot from Taylor just based on Taylor's experience. So I think that's going to be great for him. He's got a great system there with Anthony Lynn, and Justin Herbert or Tyrod Taylor. So I think that's going to be a great pick for them as well. It's just what worries me is that he's not going to get that experience right away. He's just going to be sitting the bench, which, I mean, isn't a bad thing. A lot of quarterbacks find that success just by sitting on the bench and learning from their experienced quarterbacks or veteran quarterbacks that are playing ahead of them. And I think the same thing could go for Miami with Ryan Fitzpatrick. You know, Fitzmagic, man. You can't really ignore the fact that Ryan Fitzpatrick's found a lot of success with every team that he's been on. So I think Tua can learn a lot from him as well. So I think Aberry's in a great system. I don't know who's going to excel the most, but I do think that Tua and Justin Herbert are the two quarterbacks that might not live up to the expectations that were placed upon them so early on without even really seeing them play in the NFL just yet.
Did you think Green Bay made a smart move, or do you think they kind of made Aaron Rodgers mad, or it's not going to work out in the end? Did you like the move, or did you not like the move to draft a quarterback in the first round when really they needed a receiver and they didn't get one?
Oh, they definitely needed a receiver. When I saw that pick for Jordan Love, I was really scratching my head because looking at what they've been able to do in recent years and looking what Aaron Rodgers did last year with the receivers that he had, all of his wide receivers except for, I want to say, Devontae Adams, they were all undrafted, I believe. So just seeing that and seeing what he was able to do with those kind of talents, with those kind of players, I was kind of left scratching my head. You know, you're a team that in the NFC North really needs to get those wide receivers because you're looking at Kenny Galladay, Marvin Jones. Last year, you're looking at Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen. For Chicago, Allen Robinson. So wide receivers are a huge thing in the NFC North. There's a lot of talent at that position in this division. But what surprised me was that we didn't really see a whole lot of Devontae Adams last season. I mean, I know he was hurt a little bit and things didn't really go his way. But I do think that Green Bay should have gone after a wide receiver with that pick and maybe focus on a quarterback later on in the draft because, I mean, Jake Fromm was still available and other quarterbacks. So just addressing it in the first round, I don't think it was the smartest choice, but Green Bay knows what they're doing. The same thing happened with Brett Favre when Aaron Rodgers was drafted. So we could be seeing a repeat in history, but I guess we'll find out and see if it works out for them or if it kind of bites him in the butt down the road.
Maybe Jordan Love is just much better than we anticipate. I mean, right. I like it. I think they're doing a smart thing by getting a good quarterback to fill in for Rodgers whenever he retires or leaves the team. But at the same time, you were in the NFC Championship game, and the thing you needed most was offensive weapons. And if you got those offensive weapons, maybe you could end up back there this season, and maybe things end up differently and you end up in the Super Bowl. But overall, I liked it, but I don't know if I would have gone that early. Kind of similar to what you said. It seemed a little early. I mean, It was a draft where, yes, there was a lot of really good quarterbacks in the first round, but, you know, Jalen Hurts was not a first-round quarterback. Jacob Eason was not a first-round quarterback, and you already said Jake Fromm. So I felt like it was a little early to do it, especially because you could have gotten a really, really good receiver. This draft was full of amazing receivers.
Right.
Last question I have for you. Throughout this coronavirus, it's going to change something. Some things are going to go back to normal. But what do you think it's going to change about sports in the future? Maybe a particular sport you think will change a lot. Maybe recruiting will change a lot. Or if you don't think it'll change at all, explain why.
So I think the biggest thing that we're going to see is, you know, you've already seen it on the news so much, but my dad's had season tickets to the Lions since 1975. So when this is all said and done, in the fall when it's supposed to be football season, what's going to happen with stadiums? With our season tickets, what's going to dictate if we can go to the games or if somebody else can go to the games, depending on what they're saying is available for the stadiums depending on where you're at, because our guidelines could be different than in other states and so on and so forth. So what's to dictate who can go to a game and who can't, and which season ticket holders can go to a game and who can't, just based on what the teams are saying that they're willing to have their stadium filled at a capacity-wise. Because, Miami said, I think they said 15,000. I don't know how much Hard Rock Stadium can hold regularly, but I think they did say that they were looking to have at least 15,000 fans in their stands. So what's to dictate who can go to a game and who can't? That's what I think is going to be the biggest difference down the road, is its stadium capacity for each team in each league.
Week 1 for the preseason, Lions at home at Ford Field. Are you going? You feel more comfortable to go, or are you second chancing it?
So my mom's actually a nurse. She has COVID patients. She has, I want to say, one COVID patient that's positive right now, a couple that have been negative. So just hearing her stories and seeing what we're seeing with the media on the news, I wouldn't say I'm necessarily second chancing it. I would take the necessary precautions. I'd wear that face mask. I'd have hand sanitizer on me. I would do everything to ensure that I could stay healthy, but still enjoy myself at the game. So I would totally go. If I had the opportunity to go, I would drop everything and just go to Ford Field, because there's nothing better to do than watch football.
Fair enough. You got anything coming up on Dragon Den in the upcoming future?
So I'm actually waiting. I have a GoPro gimbal coming probably tomorrow. So I'm going to start doing a lot of video content. Work with Photoshop a little bit more, maybe do some jersey swaps. So we'll see how that goes. Maybe writing some more or reaching out to some more athletes, trying to get some highlight tapes generated just to get my videography skills improving. Not really any big projects as of right now. It's just a bunch of little things that can help improve my site in the long run down the road.
All right. Thank you very much, Robert Wykowski Jr. Check out his website, Dragon Den Sports, and of course follow him on Twitter. And check this guy out, because his site's going to be massive one day. That's my opinion. You're going to have to follow this guy for big Detroit news someday in the future.
Thank you.